Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my two other co-hosts, Mike Hall
Voila!
and Mike Reed.
Hey.
It's good to be back, guys. It's good to be out of quarantine here. It's good to be able to talk some football again, and especially after a week of going through all these prospects, it's just good to be able to bounce ideas back and forth with you guys. And welcome back. We have a great show lined up for you. First things first, I want to get into is Rivera. It had a press conference, a little Zoom action like we are here, going over some things, and I wanted to talk about this with everybody, kind of give my 2 cents on this. Reed, your first initial reaction when his general consensus was that he was going with Chase Young at number 2.
Yeah, I think that's something that all of us thought, and everybody I think is kind of now on board with the Chase Young at 2, and like Rivera said, if you trade back, you're not gonna go, or that guy that you're gonna take at that spot has to be able to make just as big of an impact, if not more so of an impact, with what you get back from the number 2 pick. So you're not gonna find anybody that's gonna have as much of an impact as Chase Young. So I think that's a very good thing. I think that everybody's finally gonna have a reason to be excited here with the Redskins with this new defensive line that they're going to put together.
Yeah, and I think he makes a really good point, Rivera does, of saying basically, look, man, it's great and all that you guys want us to trade back from the number 2 spot, but with all those picks that we get, we might not be able to get that much of value out of it. So with Chase Young all that value is there tenfold, so it doesn't really match up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And he also he had a questionable couple things he said that I picked out personally, and that was the no update on Trent. And I'm glad that he did that because, especially with me, I'm really worried about what the hell's going on with Trent. Is he going to be back in a Redskins uniform? And I was hearing echoes today of that Trent burned a bridge with Ron Rivera. Didn't talk to him or anything like that, and they tried to reach out to him, and nothing was responded to. And so right. Ron Rivera basically is saying Trent's not coming back to play as a Redskin. So it's a foregone conclusion at this point. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. And I completely understand with what Rivera's, both of them. I had originally heard that Trent was upset that Rivera reached out to free agents before he reached out to Trent, which I understand. But at the same time, if you're trying to change the culture, you want to get rid of the one person who is becoming a headache, and that's Trent Williams.
Yeah. I just 100% agree. I didn't hear that story, but when you told me earlier, like you said, it made sense. Like, at this point, clearly Trent doesn't want to be here, and Rivera said from the get-go, we want people that want to be here. So it makes all the sense in the world. So I know Trent said he wants to come back and be in the Ring of Honor one day, but I don't know. I just don't see it happening with the way that everything played out at the end.
Yeah, because the one thing that doesn't make sense to me is the Redskins responded with everything that Trent essentially wanted, and that was get rid of the medical staff and then Bruce Allen, get rid of Bruce. They did both of those things. They did. The only thing was he wanted more money, but when you look at it from the Redskins standpoint, it doesn't make sense to reward you with more money when you didn't show up for work. I'm more than willing to bet that if Trent had shown up last year, had worked his ass off throughout all of this, and then afterwards Bruce got fired, whatever have you, Ron Rivera comes in, Ron Rivera would have given him a new contract because he was a soldier and made it through all of that and got through. The fact that you didn't show up at all, I don't understand why you think you're going to get money out of that.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. If he would have just reported to camp and then played and busted through it, he would have been a perfect Ron Rivera type player with all the issues going on. But at the same time, then you got to ask, would the Redskins have really cleared house like they did?
Yeah, that's a good point.
My point, it was like if he would have came back and played, then you don't know how the things would have turned out. Like I think the one of the things that pushed Dan Snyder over the edge to get rid of Bruce, obviously the fans are not coming there. People have been bad mouthing the team forever, but literally the icon for the past decade, Trent Williams, doesn't want to be here anymore. So I think that's what made him be like, man, he really pushed like my guy Trent out the door. Like he's got to go now. So if Trent would have played, maybe Bruce would still be here, and we would still be in a fucking pit of misery.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You're right. And look, all I'm saying is that I don't, first off, I think it's very disrespectful and embarrassing to Trent as a person for the fact that his agent came on a radio station the same week during a pandemic and trying to get sympathy from callers and the fan base about not being talked to by Ron Rivera. And I think this week it was like 16 million people have been put on or have filed for unemployment. And you want to call and complain that your boss didn't talk to you? You think that's a good time to do that? It's very poor timing on his part. I thought it was very embarrassing.
I'm going to be honest. I think Trent's agent's a fucking idiot. I think he's so – I'm sorry, but I think he's so obnoxious at this point. He really rubbed me wrong.
100%. Like, every single sports caster, analyst was just crushing the dude. Like, they were just like, why is Trent with this guy? He needs a better agent, better representation because this is ridiculous. Like, the dude sucks.
Not only did he put Trent in this position, he has not guided him at all. He hasn't helped Trent's situation. Did Trent want to be on quarantine for the past 2 seasons? Because his agent did a really good job of doing that, in my opinion. Right. And right now he's in a very poor spot because you either have to lower your asking price or you just sit out a whole nother year, looks like. Because Ron Ron said you had a chance to come make this football team and going on radio and complaining about him not talking to you. He's saying no. He's saying, now I don't want you on the team anymore. So you had your chance, and now the only way you're going to be playing football is if you lower your price or you don't play at all.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a year, then his career is done. There's no way he's sitting out 2 years and coming back. So.
Right, he's already an older player, and there's just no way that I don't think that he's gonna play in a Redskins jersey again, for sure. I don't think that there's any chance that Trent comes back, because I think that he will sit out if he's forced to, and then he's, like you said, his career's basically done at that point.
Now, I do think that there's a chance he could come back, and the reason why I do think that is because if Trent decided to go and fire his agent and then come and say a public apology, I handled this poorly, I was under the poor guidance of my agent, I've gotten new leadership now, I'm willing to make this work, come back for the Redskins this year and fulfill my contract. I think Ron Rivera would welcome it, and I think this would be one instance where Dan would put in his 2 cents and say, hey, bud, let's just squash it.
Right. The only thing is I think that is a slim to none chance of happening. Slim to none %.
And if you
I think with the way that he's handled it, he just doesn't seem like he's going to do that. I think that he's completely overplaying for the Redskins. I think he felt disrespected by Rivera, and his agent filled his head with a bunch of shit, and I think he's just over it.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's like a little, like, tiny sliver of like a chance, because if you even listen to Rivera in the presser or the Zoom interview, whatever you want to call it, he even said at the end of it, he was just like, he's still a Redskin, he's under contract, so we'll just leave it at that. So, I mean, he's pretty much saying he's under contract, and he can either play for us if we don't trade him. You can play this last year out on your contract and hit free agency, or you can sit out and your career can pretty much be over, or lower your asking price and we can move you.
Yeah.
Right.
And essentially those are the only options Trent has at this point. It's funny because I've talked about that for weeks, if not months now, of what the writing on the wall was, because I'll go back to this, and I'll continue to go back to this. When the Redskins came out and said they allowed Trent to go explore trades, I sat here and was like, and? Like, that means nothing, because even if Trent gets a trade, you have to accept it. You know, like it's not like he can negotiate for you. So I just thought it was ass backwards the way I situated. And look, and this is the way it's turning out to be. It looks like the Redskins called their bluff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But the other thing that really, one of the 3 things that stuck out to me, and I saved the best for last, was this, and I wanted to get your guys' opinions. He talked about Snyder talking to him daily, if not roughly every 2 days, but daily, just requesting updates. And for this reason, I wanted to thank Ron Rivera and the Redskins, because this is like a lot of times over the years, you had Bruce and whatever have you, whoever would come up there, Jay, and they would act oblivious to the obvious. And that's not what Rivera is doing here. There's an obvious elephant in the room being with Snyder's involvement with the football operations, and he's taking it head on. And he's talking about it and saying, look, he talks to me every day. He's welcoming the criticism of that. But he's saying, look, he's asking for updates, which is exactly all we want out of Snyder. As long as you're just asking for updates, if you still just want to be involved but without having a voice, that's all we want, essentially. And so I love that from Rivera. I'm not sure if you guys were able to catch that.
Yeah.
Yo, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna shoot the shit.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I heard like little bits and clips on 106.7. They were just playing like the cuts. But yeah, I mean, I know some of the junkies were kind of like, oh, here we go again, like same old Dan Snyder, blah blah blah. But I looked at it as just like you just said, Kyle. Like we've always wanted transparency and like what's going on behind. Well, not in Redskins Park because I'm not there right now, but essentially at Redskins Park, and like we want to know the inner workings, like blah blah blah. So I actually like it, and then I like that he's keeping them updated. As long as Snyder's not saying, "Hey, do this and do that," then I'm 100% okay with it.
Yeah, I'm at the same exact point you are with this. I mean, I think that it's a good thing. I mean, I think that you need to have Rivera and Snyder on the same page, or at least keep Snyder in the loop so that way he doesn't make some drastic change like he's known to doing. I don't have that big of a problem with it. I don't think it's Snyder being Snyder. I think that it's the owner wanting to be kept in the loop, especially during a tough time when they're not all in the same building.
Yeah.
One thing I did take away from that was that it's surprising that Snyder's cell phone works all the way out on his yacht in the middle of the Atlantic.
Is that where he's quarantined?
I have no idea. I would imagine so.
I
mean, dude, you just bought a $230 million yacht. You know, I imagine that you would use it in a time like this.
Right, especially with all the zombies and shit.
No, but seriously, I mean, if you're going to be quarantined in a house, like, wouldn't you rather be able to move?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
That's what I would do if I was Snyder, but Lord knows he's probably somewhere in Ashburn, Virginia. He's probably at Redskins Park.
Right. Yeah, that little weasel. Look at him, just snooping around the building.
And speaking of Snoop, something that came across Twitter yesterday that exploded was the Buccaneers' new uniforms. And Hall, I'll go to you because I know that you liked them a lot. But what was your first takeaway from the Bucs uniforms, other than them kind of going back to that old school, the mid to late 2000s look?
Yeah, no, I actually liked it. I liked the Bucs jerseys back then when they were winning the Super Bowl with Keyshawn and Warwick Dunn and Brad Johnson and those boys.
So how are you gonna forget about Warren Sapp? Come on, man.
I mean that was like a gimmick. You know what I'm saying? I had to give like other random shout outs to the random guys.
It's true.
But no, I mean I like the kind of like the matte gray or like the dark grayish, whatever we want to call that color.
Pewter.
That's what it is. I like the pewter, all pewter.
Like Mike Reed.
Pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I like the Bucs new jerseys. I think that it's cool when with the completely pewter jerseys, the all pewter. I like those ones a lot, and I agree. I think it was good for that. The digital numbers on their last jerseys on the newer ones, I didn't like those at all. I just think that the digital numbers looked ridiculous. I think that the 7s always looked weird, and I like that they got away from that and they are switching up kind of the color scheme a little bit, and they don't look so futuristic anymore.
I messed you guys up because I was making a joke. I wasn't telling Mike Reed to go. I was saying pewter. I was saying pewter like Mike Reed, the pedo joke. Yeah, so it just went.
Okay, Kyle.
I know, it went over everyone's head. I felt bad because it made it look like I skipped over Mike and over Hall, and that's not what happened. And so I felt bad this whole time because Mike Hall immediately stopped, and then you just went, and I just couldn't stop it.
Oh no, I was done. I was done talking. So
that's what happens when I try to make jokes on here instead of just being straight laced. But speaking of the uniforms, I will say I did like the Bucs' new uniforms, but I will say it's like them and the Falcons exchange jerseys, well, fonts in a way. I actually do not like the Falcons' new uniforms that they unveiled yesterday. I especially Matt Ryan. I said it to in our chat. It just ruins the uniform for me. The numbers are too long. It kind of seems just blah. And I saw something on Twitter earlier that said it was like the reincarnation of the FUBU jersey.
That's exactly what I said when I first saw them. The ones that are red that fade into the black, it looks like those old school FUBU jerseys. And then they have the size 42 3-letter ATL on the front, which is just stupid. It's so big and blocky. Those are hideous. And then they switched up with the Buccaneers. They ended up getting chrome face masks. The ones that are cool, though, is the throwback Falcons ones. They should just wear those 24/7.
I will say
like
this.
Those ones.
I do like suck. I will say this. I like the new ones, the new jerseys, the all white ones. But everything else is kind of like whack as shit. And like you said, the block numbers in the front and the size 42 front. It's just like
it's only 3 letters. It looks weird.
And then they tried to make look Matt Ryan like he had swag, and it just like failed horribly.
Yeah, right. The Boston College quarterback.
The one question I had about that whole photo shoot is you have like 4 models there, and you have like 4 of like the little stage models or whatever have you, but you don't have Julio Jones there. Why is Julio Jones not in your number one marketing pitch for New Jersey? I don't understand that concept.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, did I miss him, or like was I just like not paying attention? Or was like Julio not there? Like what the hell?
Right. Instead they had Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and I thought that was really strange. And I said something on Twitter about that, and BK made a comment, and I responded to him and said, I guess Julio doesn't mess with the Rona.
I guess maybe he's still quarantined. Who knows? Who knows where he's at?
It begs the question when those photo shoots went down.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe whenever he was get like his contract, or maybe it was I don't know. Now you got that last.
Unless they were edited together, they were clearly violating that 6 feet of separation.
Clearly violating.
He was just like, these jerseys are whack. I'm not taking a picture in these.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not playing in this shit.
He saw the jerseys. Was like, I'm not being involved with this. No. He was like, no, you can have Matt. Take Matt Ryan.
No, what really happened is he saw Matt Ryan, was just like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, I'm not wearing that shit.
I'm not standing next to the white boy.
Julio just retired.
Shut up.
Nah, I know. That's funny.
Don't play with me. But I'm glad that we were able to go over all that, because here comes the good stuff. Here comes the meat of the show, and it's the 9-player prospect of the NFL draft breakdown that we have for you guys. We're going to start with the late rounders, then the mid-rounders, and then the early rounders. We're going to finish there. And then we're just going to go over kind of maybe a previous guys that we've seen, or somebody a standout that we have overlooked, or whatever have you to talk about after. But first, let's go to Reed. Let's go to my stepson, my favorite stepson. Who was your late rounder, sir? Please tell me about him.
Well, you know that I always cheat during this, and I pick like a 4th to 5th rounder, and then a 2nd rounder and a 1st rounder. Because, well, that's just what I feel like doing.
You learned from your dad.
So my mid to late rounder, I have Antonio Gandy-Golden, the wide receiver from Liberty. Antonio Golden is 6'4", 223 pounds. He's just got the perfect body, not in a sex way, but in like a good NFL player way. He kind of disappointed a little bit at the combine with what you see on tape compared to his workout numbers. He only ran a 4.6 40. He did do 22 reps on the bench, which is good for him as a wide receiver, especially somebody with as long arms as he has. He had a 36-inch vertical, 127-inch broad, and a 7.333 cone. And then in 2019, he had 79 catches for 1,396 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's a 17.7 average. He also went over 1,000 yards in 2018. And he's a kind of a mid-round height, weight, athleticism wide receiver. He's long with a huge catch radius. He adds a lot of yardage after the contact, just using his size and his agility. He does a pretty good job creating space when he's pressed. That's one thing that I noticed. He uses his long arms and strength very well when he wants to. He has surprising build-up speed, which didn't show up in his 40, but it kind of does on tape. He's a natural ball tracker. He improved his hands tremendously from 2018 to 2019. I mean, in 2018, he had a very high number of drops. 2019, he had maybe 1 drop. He's very good at 50-50 balls. He high points the football well with his size and his long arms and leaping ability. And he always seems to catch the ball away from his frame, which is a good thing, which is what you want from one of those jump ball receivers. But for weaknesses, he seemed to have a lot of lapses in concentration, which resulted in this high number of drops from 2018. There were some times where he got jammed often inside the first 5 yards of his routes, so he was very inconsistent with his release. There were times where he looked dominant and couldn't get pressed, and then there were times where he just got destroyed, especially against Auburn as a junior last year in 2018. Auburn just physically outmatched him, and he just looked overwhelmed. He doesn't have a full route tree yet, so he's still inconsistent when he's running his routes. And he ran like I already said, he ran a slower 40 than what you see on tape. So you got to wonder why he did that. But for my comparison for him, I kind of have a Devontae Parker, somebody who might take a few years to get going, but once he puts it together, he's going to be a very solid wide receiver. They have similar builds, similar skill sets, and how he would fit with the Redskins. He could be an interesting mid-round option for a deep wide receiver class. He would be drafted probably in the third round, possibly even second round in some drafts. It's just this wide receiver class is so good and so deep that it pushes these wide receivers back a round or two.
Yeah, and that's one thing I did want to. Sorry, I did cut you off. I did make a note of that, and the fact being is that he could go that high, but with how the depth of the wide receivers in this draft class, Mike, it's insane. And one thing I took away from him is that is his slow get off. Sometimes he takes a little too long to get off the line of scrimmage, but he's a long stride kind of wide receiver. Reminds me of a guy I used to play football with in Lance. When you're looking at him at 6'5", a skinny guy, you wouldn't think he's very fast, but once he started running, he could run a 4.3 because of how the strides that he could take, which kind of looks like with Antonio Gandy.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's somebody who is, I don't know, maybe the 40-yard dash wasn't long enough for him, but once he builds up speed, he's running past a lot of those corners and safeties. But it didn't really show up in his combine workouts. But he is somebody, he does get open deep a lot, and it looked like he was just blowing by some of those corners. He could definitely fit with the Redskins and maybe develop as a big target on the outside opposite from McLaurin, which could be good. But on top of that, he could be teams that need a big-bodied wide receiver, somebody like the Ravens or even the Packers a little bit later could take him and develop him. I also could see the Bengals taking him and letting him sit for a year or so behind somebody who's has a similar skill set in A.J. Green and kind of learn from him. So he's somebody who's going to be really interesting to see where he goes in the mid-rounds. And like you said, he would be a higher pick, but with how deep this wide receiver class is, I think that kind of pushes him to the 4 to 5 range.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me on tape was one play in particular with Antonio Gandy-Golden, and that was at 6'4" and 223 pounds. You imagine it's a long-armed, a long-bodied person, and there was one route where, like the 3-cone drill, you start standing up, facing forward, you go about 2 yards, you go left, and then you come back, right? I mean, essentially, that was the route that he had ran in a short yardage, so essentially he just turned around. But being able to have his feet be that quick, being able to turn the cornerback and be able to catch a football and still be able to get yards after it, at that size, I think speaks volumes about his athletic ability and what he could possibly do at the next level, given with some good coaching, because at Liberty, you have to question how good his coaching was.
Right, yeah, and then that's one thing that I think he'll really benefit from in the NFL is having somebody teaching him how to properly run routes and use his length and his strength to his advantage. Because it's impressive when you look at his wingspan and how big he is, that he did get up over 20 reps on 225 on the bench. I mean, he's got long arms. Yeah. And he's a strong guy. He just needs to learn how to use his body better. And that'll, I think, happen over a couple years or so once he gets into the NFL.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I like Antonio Gandy-Golden, somebody I took a pleasure in watching film of because it was fun to watch. It was insane watching him versus Syracuse. That was a slaughter. Yeah. Right. Now let's move on to the other Mike, Mr. Hall. He's got Quez Watkins, a wide receiver. Let's hear about him, brother.
Yeah, Quez Watkins, wide receiver out of Southern Miss. He's 6'2", 190.
You turn into Mike. You turn into Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, he ran the second fastest 40 at the combine with a 4.3 right behind Ruggs, a couple point seconds behind Ruggs.
Wow.
His vertical is 36.5 inches, which is pretty good. And he's had production from his freshman year in 2017. He just kept getting bigger and bigger and greater and greater. all the way up till last year. His greatest season was in 2018, where he had 9 touchdowns, 72 receptions, and what does it say? 6 touchdowns on 889 yards, he averaged 12.3 yards of reception or per game. All 3 years of his playing time, he averaged double-digit receiving yards per game. He's one of 3 FBS wide receivers last year that averaged 15 yards per reception and had over 1,100 yards receiving. He's definitely a day 3 prospect. He definitely, when I was watching some of his game tape, I compared him to Hayward Bay. You remember whenever Hayward Bay was coming into the league?
Yeah.
He was just pretty much a speed guy that could run nothing but deep routes. They had to develop more into pretty much a full receiver. So I definitely could see him being like a Hayward Bay type player that could be in the league for 5 to 10 years, contribute on special teams, and maybe if needed, be like that 4th receiver type player. He has pretty good size and speed combo. Like I said earlier, his production increased year by year by year. Finally, in 2019, he finally grew into his athletic ability. He was making a lot of superstar, like go up in 50-50 ball catches. He's more composed, more explosive this year as opposed to previous years. And as I said before, he only runs about 3 to 4 routes right now. He definitely needs to work on the route tree, but he definitely is a great the Deshaun Jackson type where he can run the deep post, the deep outs, the digs, the go routes, the deep over like crossing routes. He's at his best when he's like playing against zone coverage because he's just so fast. He can beat the defender to the zone, and he has great kind of like vision where he can sit in the zone and just create space in the hole. And some of his weaknesses that he needs to work on is against better competition than himself. He's very, very, very inconsistent. If you go back and watch the game they had against Alabama, Stephon Diggs' brother, cornerback, probably going to be a first-round pick this upcoming year. Legitly, when I say manhandled and bullied that kid the whole game, like it was like bad. It looked like a high schooler versus like an elementary school kid. That's how bad it was. He could not separate at all against Diggs and against better competition than himself. He has very tight hips, and which causes him to run like tight routes and not very fluid routes. He struggles to bend and break on a lot of comeback routes, which is obviously in the league. The deep comeback is a very, very used route in a lot of offenses. And the 2 things that you cannot do in the NFL is if you want to like pretty much make your bones. You can't be 50-50 and iffy in traffic. You got to be a man, go across the middle. And this is wide receiver number 1. He catches the ball with his body, which obviously is going to result in a lot of drops, a lot of reflections for picks, maybe. So, but definitely, like I said, he'd be a wide receiver 4 in the league, and if need be, he can contribute as a kick returner.
Yeah, special teams would probably be better, so that way he can groom and kind of learn from a coach, because obviously he sounds like he needs the help. And speaking,
but I did.
What was it?
Write this down real quick. I was going to say that I put one good fit for him would actually be, it was tough to say, but actually go to the Eagles so that he can sit behind Deshaun Jackson, kind of learn from him, and kind of grow into the receiver that maybe Deshaun Jackson became.
And Lord knows that we remember Deshaun Jackson vividly in the previous years with the Eagles, and that was never fun for Redskins fans.
That would be a great fit for them, but a huge shitty situation for the Redskins.
Yeah, terrible. But not speaking of terrible, I hate to bring that up. I'm going to go into my late rounder, and that is JaMycal Hasty. Actually, one of my favorite players of this draft. My nickname for him is Sugar Ray, and that's because he's a fighter, and he fights for everything that he possibly can. I'm going to first go into his strengths, and I'll go to his weaknesses real fast. It's a one-cut kind of guy, so he's not looking to sit and be patient, waiting for the line to develop. He sees the hole, and he's gone, and he goes straight ahead. But one of the best things about him is his route running ability in the pass game. If you can imagine an upside-down check mark, that's what Hasty can run out of the backfield, and he takes it to the house. Does a great job of creating separation with a linebacker. Sitting at 5'8" and 205, it is easy for him to go under radar and be slipped under it without anyone noticing where he is. He has 31 and 1/8 arms, hands 9 and 1/8, at 4.55 40. I know it's not the fastest in the world, but neither is he, and it doesn't matter because he put up 15 on a bench for being 5'8". This is a very strong kid, and that speaks directly to his willingness as a blocker. One of the best run blockers I've seen as a running back, which is weird to say because their offense with Baylor, they kind of used a different, another kind of running back. They kind of used a committee, if you will, and he at times was even going to block for his fellow running backs, and he was doing a phenomenal job. Pass blocking, he did get run over one time, but that was by a dude that was running full steam. There's not that many people that wouldn't be knocked over by that. But for the most part, he has great form when he's pass blocking. He withstands the power. He doesn't get knocked back very far. He stands firm, keeps his balance, and keeps pushing. I really like him there. And he's a home run hitter. Hasn't been used very much. His attempts, he only has about north of 400 attempts all 4 years. He played all 4 years, only missed 8 games throughout those 4 years. And put that in perspective for you, Jonathan Taylor, the one running back most likely going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds this year. This year alone, he had 320 attempts. Just to kind of give you a scope of how much JaMycal Hasty was used, which is a great thing for NFL running backs because, look, you want productivity. You want to see how many years they can play. The less miles on the engine, the better. It's low miles what you're getting out of JaMycal Hasty. You're getting someone who fights through tackles, goes the extra yard, and I think this is someone who could be an easy late-round steal. I don't think that his 40 indicates really how fast he really is, but the fact is his grittiness, his hard-nosedness for the football, it reminds me a lot of Dalvin Cook, the way he plays, being able to develop the blocks and then being able in the pass game being a difference maker in that aspect. So I took that away from him. And then my overall view evaluation, he's a third down back / an emergency starter. Redskins fans, we know exactly what that means. And bad QB play, I thought at times, and his best, but no fumbles over those 4 years. And with that, I gave him a 7 out of 10. I think he's actually going to be one heck of a player coming up in this draft. Not sure if you guys have done any film on him.
Yeah.
I saw UCLA games here and there, and definitely coming out of that Chip Kelly offense, he's going to be he was utilized very well there, so he'd definitely be a great asset in the NFL.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like Hasty a lot as a third down back, and I think that's really just where he's going to end up making his money in the NFL if he does catch on. It's going to be coming in on those passing downs, on those third downs, and really being an effective blocker and a pass catcher out of the backfield.
Yeah,
he actually kind of reminded me of J.D. McKissick to look a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That makes a lot of and that makes a lot of sense. I just went with the easy one, Mike. So why you got to shit on me? Hey, but speaking on shitting on people, let's go to Reed with the first mid-rounder, Jeremy Chinn, the safety / linebacker. Let's hear about him.
Now, since I did this, remember, I always end up picking mid-rounds, second round, and first round. First round, but
I'm only doing that for the integrity.
One thing that I did learn about Jeremy Chinn after watching this is he's probably one of my favorite players in this draft. He's somebody that I would definitely stand on the table for, and I honestly got after watching him, I think that he could end up sneaking into the back half of the first round. But I just got to talk about him because I love him. He's a safety / linebacker from Southern Miss. He's 6'3", 221 pounds, and he just destroyed the combine. He ran a 4.45 40. He did 20 reps on the bench, had a 41-inch vertical and 138-inch broad jump. He's a freak. Now, after watching this, he's my second-rated safety right now.
Wow.
He does it all. He really does. I know that he played at a smaller school like Southern Miss, but with his athletic ability, if you're a team that's picking in the end of round 1 or early round 2, and you know you're going to miss out on an Isaiah Simmons, you gotta fall in love with Jeremy Chinn because he's a very similar player. He's like the second round version of Isaiah Simmons. He's that athletic, and he's got similar size. You can put him anywhere. So he's got very good position versatility. He lined up all over. He played free safety, strong safety, outside linebacker. He even played corner in high school. He's a size, speed, athleticism freak. with fantastic ball skills. He had 4 interceptions last year, 3 interceptions the year before, as well as 3 pass breakups and 7 pass breakups this prior season. But he's a heavy hitter. He's somebody who's going to come lay the wood anytime he gets the opportunity, and he uses his length well. He has a very long wingspan, and he uses that very well when he's wrap up tackling. He's not going to let you get away from him as soon as he hooks his hands in. He's a hustle player who's very aggressive. He has cornerback's footwork and athleticism that's in a linebacker's body. He's just a freak of nature. He could be effective early on as a big nickel or a cover linebacker in the pros because he matches up very well with tight ends. And he's a see ball, get ball type with an NFL frame. If once he sees the ball carrier, he's just going to make a beeline straight for him, and he's going to try to get that ball. And I think that he's going to have success very early on in his career, but he's not very instinctive yet. He doesn't seem to see the field well. He struggles to digest routes. He dominated at a small school, but what will he do against bigger and better competition? He could end up being a tweener, maybe with no true position in the pros. He got baited a lot, often out of deep coverage, and he needs a system where he is put in a position to use his athleticism to, like I said, to see the ball and get the ball instead of sitting back and diagnosing plays at this point in his development.
Yeah, that is so
for
funny.
Comparison,
sorry, I'm so sorry to stop you, but I've been itching to say something, and I was going to say exactly that. You're 100% right about that. I wrote down specifically he's better when he's not thinking. When he's just instinctually just going and has one job to do, that's when he really excels. Sorry about that. Keep going.
Oh, no, you're completely right. That's one thing that really stands out on film. It's like when you put him in a box and you force him to diagnose plays, he's not going to succeed at this point in his career. That could develop over time with better football awareness once he gets more comfortable. But right now, he's just somebody you got to put on the field where I could see him being an outside linebacker even and just be like, play sideline to sideline, go get the ball carrier, do what you got to do. And then match up against a tight end or something on passing downs. But for a comparison, it's hard to find a comparison for him because I said that he's Isaiah Simmons-esque. He's an Isaiah Simmons-esque prospect who his ceiling, I could see him possibly if he ends up learning the safety position, I could see him being a Harrison Smith type, only not white. Obviously with better athleticism, but I could see his floor maybe kind of being a Mark Barron type where he doesn't really excel as a safety. He's forced to move full-time to linebacker, and that's just all he is. He's just kind of a linebacker who's average and can make some plays every once in a while, but not anything special. He could fit well with the Redskins. He's not going to be there when we pick unless we end up trading back, but like I said early on, he should be used as either a nickel defender or lining up against tight ends or as a free roaming sideline to sideline outside backer. Eventually he could probably develop into a starting deep free safety if he gets the right coaching, but he's got to be in the right system. He has to take his time. He's going to get burned early and often if you put him in that position now. But I could see a team like the Seahawks or the Bears using him extremely well early on, teams with good defenses that could plug him either back at safety, play him closer to the line, maybe as a strong safety, or use him as an outside linebacker, and who excels in coverage and seeing the ball and getting it. So I like Jeremy Chinn a lot. He's got a lot to work with. He does have a lot to work on, but he's one of my favorite players in this class right now after watching him. He just has everything that you want. And if you like Isaiah Simmons, then you're going to love Jeremy Chinn.
Yeah, and his 40 jumps off the screen at you on top of the 6'3", 221 pounds. Because running 4.45 is kind of ridiculous. And one of the notes
and a 41-inch vertical.
Yeah, ridiculous. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is because I wrote down that he was a big-bodied type of guy, and he could really tackle and bring down big ball carriers and wide receivers. And so when you're talking about Redskins and safety, that's really good against tight ends. And especially in a league where tight ends could be a matchup nightmare, it'd be really smart to have Jeremy Chinn there because that could be one bullet in the chamber for everybody.
Yeah, and one thing I will add is he does seem to have very good ball skills. When the ball's in the air, like I said, he's somebody who he's not going to diagnose plays, but he is. Once he sees the ball, he's going to go try to make a play on it. So when the ball's in the air, he's either going to go up and try to get a deflection or make an interception or make a play on the receiver to knock it away. So he's very effective in that capacity where he just literally all you have to do is put him on the field. And so you see the ball, go get the ball, go do it. And he will get that done.
Right, and age and experience that will come with. But you ruined my transition because I was going to say, speaking of bullets, let's go to Hall with Hunter Bryant, the tight end.
Why did you shoot somebody?
No, because his name is Hunter.
Oh, I didn't like that one.
Let's hear about him, Hall.
Yeah, I went tight end Hunter Bryant for Washington. I went very offensive heavy this week with my breakdowns because, I just love offense and I love wide receivers and I love pass catching tight ends. And Hunter Bryant is definitely that pass catching tight end that the Redskins should be targeting in around the fourth round, mid to late fourth round. He's a 6'2", 248-pounder, ran a 4.7 40 at the combine. He was first team All Pac-12 this past season, and he was a second team All-American. He finished the season out with 52 receptions, 825 yards, and 3 touchdowns. His couple of his strengths are this one really stood out. He has very sticky hands, and he has great acceleration to and past linebackers, and he's great working the seams. Kyle already knows this. I was probably like one of the biggest Jordan Reed fans when he was here and he was healthy, and a lot of people comped him to Jordan Reed. And the Redskins have been missing that athletic, like pass catching tight end since Jordan Reed's been injured and Vernon Davis retired and was injured last season. And he has above average burst coming out of his breaks and off the ball. He has great ball skills. He has great focus. He watches the ball in all the way to his hands. He's the opposite of Quez Watkins, where he actually catches the ball with his hands, not his body. He stabs the ball out of the air, kind of like Odell Beckham. You see Odell kind of snaps the ball out the air, take it away from defenders. He has a great catch radius, which is obviously with a quarterback like Dwayne Haskins, who's working on his accuracy. It's great to have a tight end like that. He has great catch radius and a great safety valve, which would be Hunter Bryant. A couple of his weaknesses are, you get the Jordan Reed comparison, it comes with the good, it comes with the bad, because he's been injured the past 2 seasons with knee injuries, which obviously going to the NFL with knee injuries, not the greatest of things. And obviously our history with Jordan Reed, we don't want another tight end that only plays maybe half to 10 games a season. So, and he's definitely he's definitely like a kind of a robotic tight end. He needs a lot of linear routes to get him down the field and all 3 levels of the field, which he can work all 3 levels, which is a great thing. But like I said, he needs a lot of like go routes and stiff linear routes to work all 3 levels. He's a scheme-dependent tight end, which actually is as a weakness, but would be a strength for the Redskins because you heard Ron Rivera say in the interview, going back to what we said earlier, this offense is very tight end dependent and runs through the tight end like a Greg Olsen type, which I think Hunter Bryant could be a Greg Olsen light maybe. And he lacks a prototypical size, and he's not a very good blocker, which I think that over time he could develop some blocking skills. And we have Logan Thomas to be our primary blocker if need be, and Jeremy Sprinkle still. And going back to his blocking, like defensive ends tend to play through his blocks, and because he doesn't really take aggressive angles and attack angles on his blocks. But I think with the right coaching and the NFL level, he can get better with that, and it would be good enough where he can have a great career if the Redskins end up drafting him or any other team.
And him being not that great of a run blocker, more of a receiver, actually makes more sense if you're thinking about with the acquisition of Logan Thomas. I think you're right about that, Mike. You're right on par. Now, sticking with tight ends, I'm going to go reverse. And I know this is supposed to be a mid-rounder, but I'm going with Josiah Deguara. I like him a lot. His tape that he puts out, he is a worker. The best way I'd put him, he's like David, David versus Goliath. Tight end out of Cincinnati. He's only 6'2", 242 pounds. His bench, he put up 25 reps, which kind of tells you about him is that he is strong, but reliable hands. And you can guess it as a white dude. He struggles with gaining separation, but he's got reliable hands. He's going to be able to seal the edge in the run game, meaning on the outside of the tight end spot, he's going to be able to turn the hips of the defender to allow the running back a clear running lane to get outside of him. I like this kid because one thing I wrote down here is that he ran back on a pick 6 to tackle it, to stop it. And it kind of shows you the kind of worker that he is. He's not going to pop off the screen to you unless you're looking for him, but he does all the right things. He has great form. He's low out of his stance in any kind of route that he's doing, But the one problem is when he goes to pass block, that one situation, sometimes he's too high. And as a smaller guy at 6'2", Mike, what happens when you have a poor high stance in pass blocking, you get thrown around like a rag doll. You're not going to have a very good day, and that can happen to him sometimes. But with good coaching and sustainability, I think this guy can be a very good tight end in this league. I think I compare him to like a Gavin Escobar, Dallas Clark, if you will, if he goes to one of those offensive heavy schemes, because he could really do well in that capacity. He's a 3-sport athlete, so you have to imagine he's athletic, but he's not going to be able to beat anybody with his speed. He's a man of all trades. He's a carpenter, basically, essentially the best way to be able to put it. Now, I have all these stats written down, and my light is blinding me, so I can't see them. So I'm not going to read them right now. But in 2019, I will say he was voted all AAC by his coaches, coming out of Cincinnati in that small conference. But you can tell this kid knows what he's doing, and he's very good. The only problem is I worry about his size going to the next level. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to withstand blockers. Can you imagine a guy like, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, or Deron Payne going against a guy that's 6'2", 240?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, you wouldn't have him matched up 1-on-1 with him.
Right. I'm just saying, like on a run block or a pass block, he's not going to do that too much for you. It's more of like a matchup based kind of thing for Josiah. But the fact is, the reason why I wanted to go into all of that into depth is just to kind of go into a glimpse of who he is, and that he's just a fighter and a worker. He's going to do what you want. He's going to do what he's told. But you got to be able to scheme him into things. He's not going to make much of his own.
Right. I completely agree with you. I do like Josiah. I think that he's somebody who could definitely be a mid to late round pick for us that could end up panning out. And you know who he kind of reminds me of in a way? I don't want to necessarily say this name for Redskins fans, but I think that he could come in to a similar role, and I could see him panning out as an H-back, kind of like a Chris Cooley type. He's kind of undersized like him, and he can get it done. If you can use him and get him into space, like you said, I think that he'd be a fantastic pass catcher for us.
And I didn't even think about that, because you're right. I mean, if you put 2 and 2 together, he does match up Cooley better than anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Given the athleticism, low to the ground, but being able to catch a football. I mean, it explains Cooley in a sense. But so, Reed, let's go back to you, and let's go the high rounder. And this is a controversial one, especially around Redskins Park here. You got Tua, and I'm not even going to say his last. I'm just going to say Tua Tonga. Tell us about him.
Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa, Kyle. They say it. It's not spelled with an N, but that's what the Samoans do.
I tried last week, and you made fun of me.
I know. But yeah, Tua. I like Tua. It's tough to get a good read on where Tua's going to fall right now with all the reports coming out. There's some people, remember, it's been mocked for months, really for the past 2 years, that the Dolphins were going to get Tua, but now it's coming out that the Dolphins, a lot of people in that room like Justin Herbert more so than him. Apparently 2 teams have already flunked Tua in terms of because of his health, and one of the teams is a top 10 team. So we don't know who any of those teams are yet, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to Tua. Will he have a similar draft day fall like Aaron Rodgers did, or will he still be a top 5 pick, which is what everybody expected before the injury? But Tua comes in, he's a smaller quarterback. He's 6 foot, 217 pounds. He's left-handed, but he does have good hands. He has hands that are an inch bigger than Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's 3-4 inches taller than Tua. Tua's stats have just been ridiculous. I mean, in 2019, he only played 9 games, but he completed 71.5% of his passes for 2,840 yards, 33 touchdowns with 3 interceptions with a 206.9 rating. And the year before that, when he played 15 games, he completed 69% of his passes, which is sick. He threw for 3,966 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He has a fast release. He's fairly accurate to all 3 levels of the field, especially short and intermediate throws. He's a fantastic touch thrower. He's a very, very good when it comes to just dropping the ball into a bucket. He can do that just with amazing ease. He excels in his touch throws. He has very good escapability. He's athletic enough to move the chains and keep plays alive. He has an 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio for his entire career, which I think is just ridiculous. he's played on the biggest stage and in the biggest moment, and he's produced. I know some people will think of the 2018 national championship game where he completely screwed that up, didn't show up. But the year before that, when he came in and made possibly one of the biggest plays in NCAA history, he has performed on the biggest stage. He's willing to scan from the pocket. He can fit the ball into tight windows, especially between the hashes. He does a very good job of that. And he seems to hold the safeties with his eyes well. He has a very good play fake. He can be improvisational at times, and he's well coached. He's a well-liked kid. He's a hard worker, and he has active feet that allows for his quick setups, and he can get the ball out really just in a flash if you need him to, if the pressure's closing in on him. But weaknesses, obviously, number one, it's got to be the injury concerns. And some teams may have concerns about his height if they like those more traditional drop back passers like a Justin Herbert, who's a little bit bigger, who can see the field better. And was Tua's biggest question, though, to me, aside from the injuries, was a success a result of the players around him? I mean, If you just look at those Alabama teams, they have, 4 wide receivers that are going to end up being first-round picks at some point, more than likely, with Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith next year, and then forget who else it is, but four wide receivers that could be first-round picks, multiple offensive linemen that could be first-round picks, some fantastic running backs, and a fantastic defense. I mean, he was just surrounded by players that were amazing and one of the best coaches in college football history. He can improve his anticipation and timing throws. Sometimes he struggles with that. And sometimes he'll make panic throws with only a little bit of pressure in his face. That was one thing that I noticed, is the pocket's not necessarily collapsing around him, and all of a sudden Tua looks like he panics and just gets rid of the ball. He doesn't always fully finish his delivery, which kind of makes it look awkward when he's throwing the football. He doesn't have the best arm strength in terms of how far you can throw the ball downfield. Now there's times where Tua can throw the ball with a lot of zip behind it and fit it through a tight window, but in terms of how far he can throw the ball downfield, a lot of times you'll see his receivers who are breaking wide open kind of slow down and have to wait for the pass to get to him. And he can make every throw just about on the football field, so his arm strength shouldn't be that big of an issue. But like I said, that is one thing that I think that a lot of teams will kind of knock him on, and was coming up short in the 2019 championship game of fluke, and he could improve his footwork at times. At times it gets a little bit rushed. But for comparison, I have Mark Brunell. They're both kind of shorter, left-handed, mobile quarterbacks, but he has the ability to kind of be a Russell Wilson type if he can be healthy for his entire career. That's how much talent he has. But it's so hard to gauge him just because you look at the team that surrounded him and the players that are with him, and it's so hard. It's so hard to see if it was because of Tua that they succeeded. Did he make these wide receivers in the first-round picks, or did these wide receivers make his job a lot easier?
Yeah.
But how he fits, you're good. I'm just about done. I wrote that if the Redskins think that he's going to remain healthy and he is a major upgrade over Haskins, then it would make sense for them to take him. I don't see that happening. And if they believe he's an elite quarterback and a franchise-changing player, then obviously, a franchise quarterback is the most important thing. But with this season, we don't know if players are going to be able to report to training camp yet. We don't know any of that. So I just don't think that it makes sense to draft a quarterback right now. Obviously, the Dolphins are a fit and have been linked in for years. I think that the Chargers could also be a good fit where they could let him sit and learn for a year or so behind a similar quarterback in Tyrod. And plus him being from Hawaii and the West Coast, and the Chargers need fans badly, that would be very good for them. And also a dark horse type teams, I wrote that Joe Brady and the Panthers need someone to run their offense. And if he's on the board still when they're picking, they may view him as a better long-term solution than Teddy Bridgewater. But like I said, I don't see that happening either. But finally, the Patriots need a smart, accurate quarterback to build around. And if Tua falls because of his injury concerns, or the Patriots find it in them to trade up, which is unlikely because Belichick never trades up, then they could view Tua as Brady's replacement. But it's hard right now to get a good gauge on where Tua is going to go. You see some reports of him going top 5, and you see some reports of him falling down the draft right now. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of the Patriots, it's funny you say that because I was going to bring up a rumor that was flying around Twitter today, and that was that teams are going not as high on Tua as that was being projected, that he could possibly fall into the teens, and in that area, people were saying, watch out for the Patriots because they could come up. Yeah. They have a bunch of capital to be able to trade.
Right, and imagine being Tua and getting coached by Nick Saban, and then and then by Bill Belichick. I mean, that would
It'd be a perfect
be
fit.
fantastic. Yeah, it would make sense. And like I said, I mean, it's been reported over the last couple of days that 2 teams have already flunked Tua and that they're not going to draft him. And one of the teams is reportedly in the top 10. So it's going to be interesting to see who those guys are.
Yeah,
and apparently a lot of people
I'll
with
tell
the
you.
Dolphins like Justin Herbert more.
I'll tell you who those 2 teams are: the Bengals and the Redskins.
I hope so.
No, but I like Tua. In the thing is, I think being in the early teens is where he should be. I said that earlier on Twitter today, and somebody like came after me and wrote, Joe Burrow only had 1 good season of work, and I was like sitting here thinking, yeah.
Tell them to watch Joe Burrow's tape though, and tell them what they think.
Right.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You want your quarterback to show improvements.
The one thing the reason why I brought that up is because it goes directly to what you were talking about with the panic throws from Tua. Sometimes when he gets pressure, just being able to throw the ball away, where with Joe Burrow, the one thing that separates him and Tua is the pocket presence, is the poise, being able to stand in the pocket, throw the ball, and be able to take a hit. It seems always poised and collected, and that's where I think is the separation. I don't think they should be drafted anywhere close to one another.
Right. I completely agree. Joe Burrow's pocket awareness is something that I don't think we've seen in a long time coming from college, and just seeing him make plays when things break down is what really separates him. And Tua, at times, he has made some big plays when things are broke down, but he also struggles heavily and is off target too often, doesn't follow through on his throws. He makes panic throws, and his feet get all of a sudden very happy when he's under pressure. And that's just the major difference right now. And you got to wonder if his injury is going to affect that even more, if he's going to be nervous to get hit, because he's had fairly severe injuries twice now in his collegiate career. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you have to imagine, if you're a team thinking about taking Tua, you have to make sure you have a good offensive line set up for him. So that kind of dwindles down his options. So let's go to Mike Hall, whose prospect sounds like it should be a vodka bottle. Laviska Shenault, the wide receiver. Let's hear about it, Mike.
It's a cleaning product.
Yep. I got Laviska Shenault. He's definitely I would probably put him in the late first round, but a lot of people have him going maybe early second round. If he happens to slip, he'll be the latest he'll slip into early second round. But I have him as a late first rounder, maybe starting towards the Packers on back area. He's 6'1", 227. Ran a 4.5 at the 40, which a lot of the scouts and the GMs didn't really like, because I guess they wanted him to be a little bit faster.
Right, but he also got hurt when he was running too.
Yeah, exactly. But he's one of those players that he has that game speed. Now he's more of like a straight runner. He's more like a game speed guy. Excuse me. He in 2018, which is when I first actually got really hip to Laviska Shenault. I watched him a couple times when I found out about Patrick Lindsay as well. He was the Colorado, the team voted him MVP that year. He only played 9 games, started 8. He was first team All Pac-12. He led the FBS in 9.6 receptions a game, and he was 4th in FBS with 112 receiving yards a game. He had 6 touchdowns that year, and he scored 5 touchdowns on 17 rushing attempts that year, which is ridiculous. And he was the only player that had 5 receiving touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns in 2018. Going into 2019, his production dropped, which obviously you don't want to see that going forward, but it was kind of like an off year. The team was bad just overall, lost a lot of key players. He played in 11 games, again started 8. He went for 764 yards and 4 touchdowns receiving, and 161 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. The comparison that I put him as was Deebo Samuels, because he's really versatile. Yeah. He can play all 3 positions. Yeah, he can play all 3 wide receiver positions. You can put him in as a running back. You can put him in as a punt returner, kick returner. You can use him as a wildcat quarterback or goal line or short yardage. He's just an all-around, just versatile player. But a lot of the people on NFL.com were comparing him to Sammy Watkins, right. I guess because of his downfield play and
his hair back then.
Yeah. And the one thing that stood out to me in his strengths was he has vice grip hands, and he's a phone booth bully in the run game, which obviously in the NFL, you want to be a great to elite receiver, you got to get down and dirty in the run game and at least be average in the run game, but he's great in the run game. Unfortunately, he's kind of injury prone, which is why he's only played 8 games past 2 years.
I didn't know you could hear that.
This is the second time. This is the second time that Reed has farted on the podcast.
Fucking hilarious.
Sorry, Hall. Keep going.
I'm sorry.
He has a big frame and a superb side speed and strength combo. He has a very early burst in his routes, which causes him to eat a lot of cushion against the cornerbacks faster than expected, which obviously causes him to get deeper on them and get behind them and obviously score touchdowns or make big plays. He's a silky smooth deep ball catcher and he's a very good ball tracker when it's in the air. He's the power of a running back, like I said before, on goal line and kind of like short yardage plays, stuff like that. He has the power of a running back on direct snaps. Like I previously mentioned, his durability is an issue. He's been injured over the past 2 years. On more physical cornerbacks, say like your Josh Normans on his Carolina days or your Richard Shermans, he gets forced to the sidelines and struggles against like the bigger physical receiver or cornerbacks. If you're like a cornerback, say again Richard Sherman, one of those guys that really studies the tapes and studies what's going on in game flow, he alters his strides and his speed and his length in his routes, which pretty much like tips off the cornerback like, oh, he's running a deep route, he's running a short route, he's running an intermediate route. So that's one thing he's got to work on. He's not very convincing in his double moves as a receiver. He got to definitely work on that. Very tight and stiff when it comes to that. And the one thing that he does need to improve in the run game is taking better blocking angles against cornerbacks. But again, with better coaching and wide receiver coaching in NFL, that's pretty much easily fixed. So look out for teams like Green Bay, maybe Minnesota, the Patriots on the back end, perhaps, because they need wide receiver help to draft him in the late first round.
Any comment on that, Reed?
No, I completely agree. I love Laviska Shenault. I think I'm not gonna fart, Kyle. I think it's a shame that he's dropped a little bit. Like I know that teams are disappointed in his 40 at the combine, but like he got hurt when he was running it. I think he tore his abdomen. He didn't run his second 40. And I think what you see on tape, I think that your comparison for him was perfect. He's a lot like Deebo Samuel, where you'll line over wherever you see him line up in the backfield a lot. Wildcat quarterback even, and you'll run the ball out of the backfield. He's big, he's strong. You put up 17 reps on the bench. I think that Shenault's somebody that people are really starting to forget about, and I like him way more than a wide receiver like T. Higgins.
Yeah. I was very high on T. Higgins like before the season, and just watching game tape and everything like that. I was just like you said, Shenault's way more versatile and just he's faster as far as like game speed wise.
Right.
He's a better big frame, 50-50 catching. I like T. Higgins, but yeah,
right.
Shenault.
To me, Higgins is weird because he's almost like an anomaly. Like you see his strengths on tape, like his jump balls and some of it getting open downfield, and it didn't really show up at all in his combine workouts. It's weird. He had like a 30-inch vertical or something. I know he's tall and long, but it was weird.
Like he's not like a combine or like a blow you away guy, but when he gets on the field, he's like we got to get that guy the ball type of guy. But
yeah, he's somebody though. He concerns me too with his drops. He dropped a lot of easy passes. Sorry guys, I'm sorry. We'll let you get started in a second, Kyle. But I went deep down the 2021 draft rabbit hole the other day, and I was watching a lot of Trevor Lawrence, and T. Higgins was dropping a lot of. I see him maybe like 4 or 5 different times within a span of like 3 games drop wide open passes that were just put right on the money that he should have caught. It was frustrating.
Exactly.
And that's not typical from a Clemson wide receiver. Usually they have stickies coming out of South Carolina there. But look, me and Mike, we're kind of in the same mind length. The reason I say that it's Thursday, looking towards the weekend, looking to be off work. His player sounded like a vodka bottle, and my player is Matt Hennessy. So we're going to keep with the alcoholic drinks. The center and guard out of Temple, a redshirt junior. His brother is actually the long snapper for the New York Jets. Kind of give you a glimpse into who he is. Great form, perfect form. Is able to use his base to his ability. He almost looks robotic in a way when he's out moving across the football field laterally. But I like this kid. If you go back and you watch his UNC tape, I made a note here. At a minute 37, you can go and see where he touches 3 different defenders on one play in run game. And Mike knows from football, if you're able to touch 1 to 2 players, that's phenomenal. If you touch 3, that means that a very good run happened and great things happened. He's really good at being able to respond to a strong punch from a defender. For example, one of his weaknesses is a strong upper body kind of defender. Imagine like a Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, one of those guys. They're able to throw him around a little bit upper body, but he has the ability to hold on with his arms while he's being thrown around. As crazy as that is, it kind of works. They don't sack the quarterback, and he does his job. I like him. I like the way that he conducts his game because the way I like to look for players is workers. The guys that do the dirty work, the ones that are doing the nitty gritty and doing the good stuff to make the good plays happen. And the combo blocks, the zone running scheme, I think that he is one of the better fits for like San Francisco, going to a place where they kind of have the outside of the offensive line set up, but they need that interior work. I would love for him to come here to Washington, but I don't think that they're going to spend their 66th pick on a center/guard. I don't think that's going to be in their plans, and I don't honestly think he's going to be there at that position. But if they could, he'd be one hell of a talent to bring here, and he would be able to help out at guard because of how smart he is. Missed 4 games over 3 seasons there at Temple. In 2019, he was a third-team All-AP Associated Press All-American, and he was a first-team All-ACC, and he was a finalist for the Remington Trophy, which is a nation's best pivot block, which is just turning the hips of the defender and keeping your back between him and the ball carrier. And that's what the pivot block is, and he's one of the best in the nation at it. Because what I did, Mike, what I did is like I would go back to like the 200th prospect, and then I would start down, and I would go down from there. And so when I came across Matt Hennessy's film, it kind of just kind of woke me up a little bit because seeing a guy dominate like he was, being at that spot, it kind of threw me out of the loop for a little bit. So it's kind of like, whoa, what are you doing here? You're a little too good. And that's him. I like him a lot. And coming from Temple, you're talking about a run kind of style offense. And so in the NFL, the Redskins, that's what they're going to need, and he would be a good fit. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right. I think that he's somebody who the Cowboys are going to look at very hard with their second-round pick. And also, quick question. Did you use the Draft Network's big boards?
Yes, I believe so.
That's exactly why they have so many players rated way too low.
Yeah, I think it was them, but what I did is I accidentally deleted the internet browser, and then so I had to go back, and I think I clicked on another one, but I don't like it because it takes forever to load. It's like they have a picture set up for every prospect, and that's not really what I need. But look, it gets the job done.
For some reason, I had to go make my own but I'll make my own on the Draft Network's website, and then like I'll go to use it for one of those mock drafts, and the players will be in like a different fucking order than what I selected them. I'm like, hey, this isn't my big board, guys. What's going on? It gets real frustrating. But yeah, I have the top 335 players at each position. I did the other day because I'm so bored. I did like 20 to 35 players at each position.
Dude, that is absolutely incredible. I can't believe you watched that much. I think the one thing I will take away.
I haven't watched that much of them. A lot of them were just scouting reports that I read.
Right, but one thing I did want to take away is that
I haven't got the most of them yet.
This week in particular, what I really wanted to go back and do is I wanted to find out like the little details into things, like you had shown last week, Mike, of going in like that Matt Hennessy, his brother, is a long snapper for the Jets, and I loved being able to go in and read players' combine breakdowns and them describing that info. I think that's really good to read because you kind of get to find out a little bit about these prospects a little bit. And
it's fun, man. It's always cool to learn out new shit about some of these guys.
Yeah.
And I will say real quick, I had to fry Ian Kenyon on Twitter.
Why?
real quick, because he made some stupid comment about. He said, "Is there any reason Jonathan Taylor isn't seen as an equivalent NFL prospect to Saquon Barkley, Zeke Elliott, and Leonard Fournette?" And I was like, yeah, his fumbling issues. He had 8 fumbles in 2017, 4 in 2018, and 6 in 2019. Of those 18 total fumbles, 15 were recovered by the other team. Barkley and Zeke had 4 fumbles each for their entire career, and Fournette had 5 his entire carear.
Hold on. You're Sonic the Hedgehog, Ian Kenyon?
Yeah. No. Ian Kenyon, NFL.
Oh my God! I thought you were talking about a kid we went to high school with.
No. That's right.
I was like, Ian Kenyon knows who Jonathan Taylor is?
No, but he listens to this podcast, so watch what you're saying.
No, but I think you're absolutely right, because I actually had gotten into it with somebody on Twitter today because they had asked, who do you have ranked over? Do you have DeAndre Swift ranked over Jonathan Taylor? And I said, yeah. I said, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Because DeAndre Swift can make something out of nothing. The way I equated it is that DeAndre Swift was Darius Geis, and that Jonathan Taylor was AP. And Jonathan Taylor needs a kind of offense, if you like the Steelers, that has a good running game, that has a running game that's sustainable, like the Cowboys, where it's a run-first offense. Jonathan Taylor couldn't come here to Washington, run into a brick wall, and be able to run for 1,000 yards. I don't think that's going to be possible. But that's why I separate them, and I think that Swift is better.
Right. I mean, honestly, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and J.K. Dobbins over Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, dude, he had 18 total fumbles his career in college. That's ridiculous. Now, he had more fumbles in one season than Barkley and Zeke had in their entire collegiate career. That's why he's not on the same page as them.
Yeah, and this guy, sorry, Mike.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, you can just watch them play in the eye test. You can just see that Zeke and Saquon just clearly
better. Right. They're different specimens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor is not really jumping out of the screen at you. I made a comment that said, defenders aren't touching him until he's 3 or 4 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Right. And why? Because Wisconsin always has good offensive lines.
Exactly. And then he said, oh, well, he has more yards after contact than DeAndre Swift. So I went in. DeAndre Swift has less than 200 attempts. Jonathan Taylor had 320. Yeah, I would imagine 120 more attempts of running the ball. You're going to have more rushes after contact.
Plus, that stat can be misleading because all contact technically means is he broke an arm tackle or he broke somebody who was reaching out for him and he got out of their grasp. Unfortunately, that's what that can mean sometimes. So that stat can kind of be a little bit misleading.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that Jonathan Taylor is not going to be a successful pro player, because I think he is.
Right.
I would say that he's more like Frank Gore, like a guy that if he really tried, he could play forever. But it's not like he's somebody that everyone's going to be clamoring for.
Right. I personally think he's the 4th best running back in this draft, strictly because fumbles for a running back really scare me. And somebody who's fumbled that much and they're talking about him. They're like, well, he improved his fumbling his senior year. It's like, what did he do? He went from 4 in 2018 to 6 in 2019. He improved from his first year, when he had 8. But I mean, what the fuck? Of course he did.
Isn't Bruce Allen taking that stat down, I guess?
Yeah, right. Jesus. That was just wrong.
All right. I think that's going to be it for us, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kyle. Mike Hall.
Yo.
And Mike Reed.
Yo, what's up?
It was a pleasure, everyone. Please like and share our page on Facebook. And just give us a shout out, please. Always reach out. And you can ask us questions throughout the week. If you, I'm doing like a film breakdown every day, so I'm picking out one player of a new prospect I'm doing, and I'm showing on Twitter a couple of their films. I'm taking videos of the YouTube videos and just putting them up there on Twitter. So if you have any requests, you want to see anybody broken down, just feel free to reach out to us. We don't mind at all.
Feel free to give us some topics if you want to give us anything to talk about too.
Yeah, and I know Mike Reed is bored, so please give him something to do.
You have no idea. It's my birthday today.
Oh my God, dude, we went through the whole podcast and I forgot.
It's okay. I don't like being the center of attention.
Well, should we sing Happy Birthday, Hall?
No.
I want to do that.
No.
Are you gonna do anything tonight for your birthday? Or you're literally.
What am I gonna do, Kyle? Go to a bar?
No, but you could order.
Go to a movie theater?
No, you could go full man and go get some Texas Roadhouse.
Oh, that's true. That's actually not a bad idea.
No, it's not, and that's where I go for my birthday. And I think they have like a family deal where it's like the 2 burgers and 2 fries, for like $20 or something.
Really?
Yeah, they have some sort of like
Whoa.
family deal that they're offering for carryout. So if you guys should really think about that.
Yeah, I might have to do that. Maybe get the COVID deal.
You guys have a COVID price. All right, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Redskins football. Woo!
Woo!
Audio Jungle.